We all know and love retro video game music in games such as the original Super Mario Bros., Pac-Man, and even Tetris. This wave of video game music introduced a whole new generation of kids in the 80s and 90s to electronic music, even though electronic music was in the works at the turn of the 20th century. Of course, there were technical obstacles to overcome when it comes to adding music to a video game, but we are going to focus on the history of electronic music and its progression into video games. So, what is electronic music? Electronic music is described as any form of music that is produced electronically. It's usually consisting of instruments, synthesizers, drums, samples, and has that inherent electronic sound that we recognize. Electronic music has a long history that began when the phonograph was invented in 1877 by Thomas Edison, but video games did not even occur until 1972, 14 years after the first video game was released. From 1928 to 1935, we began to see electronic instruments being invented, such as the theremin, the onde montano, and the Hammond organ. In 1939, John Cage published Imaginary Landscape No. 1, the first electronic composition. Cage used 2-speed turntables, frequency recordings, muted piano, and a cymbal. However, he lacked the electronic means of production. Cage is one of the well-known founders of electronic music, so let's give this piece a listen. Later, in 1957, Daphne Oram created the Ornamix machine, which was a drawn sound machine. This allowed for more intricate sounds, frequencies, and timbres. Oram is an under-talked about founder of the electronic music we have today, and it was her compositions that initially made me connect electronic music to video game music. The first video game came out in 1958. It was a very basic form of tennis with no music or sound effects. The developments of electronic music snowballed with too many achievements to note on. And then, in 1972, Pong was released and was the first game with sound effects. You may think this isn't much, but at the time, it was groundbreaking in the gamer world. You could not only look and feel like you were playing the game, but now you can hear it too, adding an auditory sense. Imagine playing your favorite game without the sound effects. I bet it's weird or maybe even challenging for some games. Let's give it a listen. In 1978, one of the first games to have continuous music during play is Space Invaders. This was when you could start taking away the game and having actual music compositions. Early electronic music sounds like retro video game music and sound effects, and that's really when I began to wonder how electronic music stepped into the world of video games and significantly increased its popularity. Today, we have video game compositions that are true works of art. Just listen to any of the Final Fantasy game soundtracks. We owe all of our love for classic video game soundtracks to the founders of electronic music.